what people don't know is about the space planning. So it's about how you walk through your space and how you design the space in terms of interior design. For me personally, my real interest in design is people and how people interact with spaces. And obviously now with social media and how we're interacting with media a lot more, that is also creating a different way that people interact with each other in terms of what the architecture we're creating. We as architects talk about planning, how the building works functionally. We talk about materiality, we talk about space, the volumes, the interconnection. But what is really important is that all this stuff comes together to create experience.
Welcome to the Lovin Real Estate series, where we bring you closer to the people and ideas shaping the UAE's most exciting developments. In this series, powered by Taraf, we explore the intersection of design, innovation and lifestyle, diving deep into what makes the region's real estate market so dynamic. In this episode, we're joined by a visionary in the world of architecture, Michael Magill, global creative design lead at RSP Architects and the mastermind behind one of Dubai's most iconic branded residences, the Karl Lagerfeld Villas by Taraf. From the philosophy behind timeless design to how architecture can influence market trends and even the way people live, Michael shares powerful insights into what it means to design not just for beauty, but also for purpose and identity. Michael, welcome.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
We're excited to have the conversation. You've been working on big projects around the world. So what sets designing in Dubai apart from other global cities?
I think that the real difference in Dubai is that your access to creativity, that people here are willing to challenge you in terms of what you can actually achieve in a creative way. And working with like very large brands like the Lagerfeld is just really exciting, because here you can really immerse yourself in what that brand is and then what it means to be having that brand in the Middle East and in Dubai. So it makes it a very creative process.
I'm glad you mentioned brands such as Karl Lagerfeld. Branded residences are so popular recently, especially in Dubai. So in simple terms, what makes them different from a regular luxury home?
Yeah, I think what's different with the branded residence is you buy into a part of the story of the brand, and that's what we really enjoy doing. Is you understand the brand and you want to give part of that brand to people so they can immerse themselves in the brand. Like example, Karl Lagerfeld, he's one of the most famous fashion designers in the world, and we went through his life and studied him deeply as an individual and what he liked to design and his essence of his approach to design. And then we sort of put that into the architecture and interior design to really create a unique home that when you're living in that home, you're living in a home that would have been similar to the home that Karl himself would have lived in.
Wow, how exciting for fashion lovers, because people immediately think of fashion and luxury when they think of Karl Lagerfeld. So I wonder, can you be more specific? Like, what does that actually look like in terms of architecture? What can people look forward to in terms of a Karl Lagerfeld home?
So in the start of the creative process, we went to Paris and to meet the creative team who look after the Lagerfeld, and we actually started the whole process in his home. So he has a maison in the center of Paris, a really beautiful chateau house on a private courtyard, and this is where he lived for the last 25 years. And you know, it was through our experience of his home that we then were to understand the things that he liked in terms of purity and design. He was a big fan of 18th century architecture, which forms a very pure symmetry setting out of spaces. So again, in terms of our approach to the building, again in his house, the front door was very large and impactful. The ironmongery, you know, we take that inspiration, so we have that arrival experience similar to his house in Paris. And then the layout of the planning of the house is all set out as very pure forms, symmetry, axial, again because of his love of 18th century architecture, then informed our planning and how you transition through the spaces in the house.
So interesting. He was also a cat lover. Are there any references to cats in the homes?
Yes, of course. He was a cat lover, and in the whole branding and positioning, we always had a little cat in all our drawings, and we thought that was a nice homage to that element. But yeah, so it was like you know, another big thing that he had was the catwalk. So if you know any of Karl's shows, he was famous for these amazing fashion shows. And then again, that was another element of the design. So right through the center of the house and through the master plan itself, we integrated the catwalk. So as you arrive at the front of the villa, you transferred on this beautiful catwalk through the house and through the living spaces onto the pool. And again, it was a celebration of that catwalk idea that he so loved, that you can actually experience in the final design.
It sounds mind-blowing, phenomenal in so many ways. RSPP is one of the most established and recognised firms in the region in terms of trusted architecture, and they have many awards across different categories. And I wonder, how has this experience and credibility influenced the decision and the vision behind the KL Villas?
Yeah, like every project we take on is unique, and it's a unique opportunity. And then I think that's what our DNA is trying to understand the client and what they want out of the project. So I think that's what we bring that's really special to the project as RSP.
And you particularly, what is your overall design philosophy, and how do you kind of, I guess, go about choosing layouts, materials and colours for different designs?
Yeah, so I always approach it like we don't design buildings, and we design experiences. So we want to look at what people experience when they walk into a space, when, the size of a space, the materiality of the space, the noise in the space, the way the wind goes through a water feature, the way the wind goes through trees. These are all elements that actually enhance and create the experience of architecture. So these are the elements that we're very passionate about, and that's what really drives our design and ends up creating very unique experiences and designs, just not a building.
Interesting. And in terms of design trends, do you think trends shape your choices in any way?
Obviously, as designers, we're influenced every day. So, all the world's best architecture is actually a homage to that time and place in society and in time. So anything that we are creating today, we are influenced by society, by social media, by how people interact. And like for me personally, my real interest in design is people and how people interact with spaces. And obviously now with social media and how we're interacting with media a lot more, that is also creating a different way that people interact with each other in terms of what the architecture we're creating. So yeah, so for me, it's about people, and then it's about what's happening in society now that then defines how we design our buildings.
So in a way, you mentioned social media, how would that influence a design?
So the way that social media has really driven our projects is we call them the Instagrammable moments of the project. So we actually, when we're developing a project, we actually create many signature moments to the project, which then people would then go and then relate to that moment with the building and the architecture and the interior design. So that, maybe in 20 years you wouldn't have thought of having Instagrammable moments, but we would actually actively design them into our projects now. So it's basically, again, but that's people being interconnecting with the architecture, because people want to perceive the architecture in that way, a two-dimensional image. So, we didn't respond to that maybe 20 years ago, but now that's something that we would respond to.
You mentioned people and a feeling, and I just wonder, in your experience, how can great design actually affect how we feel in a space and how we use a space?
Well, I think it depends on the building itself, or what you're trying to create, whether you're trying to create a religious experience or you're trying to create a nightclub experience with energy and activity. So, in terms of, if you look at spaces in terms of energy, having a low energy space is about the noise, it's about the surfaces. The architecture has to be very calming, very minimalist. The landscape has to be soft and dreamy. So then if you're creating a nightclub, then it's all about energy and movement in the space, use of reflective materials, lots of zigzags, so you can see visually how the different space can automatically reflect a different experience for the person. So, that's why when you look at our architecture, it can be quite varied, but it's because we want people to experience every piece of design differently.
Interesting, and you mentioned that at the moment a trend would be towards designing for social media, creating those Instagrammable moments, but also you want to create a space that people want to live in and not just admire. So I just wonder, what are the little things that you think about to create, I guess, a homely environment that we may not kind of notice?
For me, it's a lot, like what people don't know is about the space planning. So it's about how you walk through your space and how you design the space in terms of interior design. And the feeling of materials is very important. So like, for example, in somewhere like UAE, people were in their bare feet a lot. So, it's a very hot climate. So we look at, how you touch surfaces, and in that sort of climate is very different if you lived in somewhere like Ireland, which is very cold. Again, how we would design and look at materiality would be very different in that environment because it's a lot warmer. So yeah, so I think for us, it's it's about those little details that people don't realize, but they just come to know that it's a great space, but they don't know why.
If someone is touring a KL villa for the first time, what's one space or feature that you'd hope we would really pay attention to?
Well, there's a couple. I think a couple of the things Karl Lagerfeld had a real, in all his houses, he had a real love of the staircase. And he done lots of his photo shoots on his staircases, where you have these beautiful gowns and ladies walking down the staircase. So in the Lagerfeld Villas, we have this beautiful spiral staircase which drops into the living, dining spaces. And it becomes real, this beautiful sculpted moment in the house. And for me, that's like a visually stunning element. But another thing in terms of how you use the building and how Karl used his homes, he was so passionate about books. He had thousands and thousands of books. So in the villa, we have a library come study. And we have this beautiful library, which then looks out to this private courtyard. And from inside the house, you can see glimpses through to this study, and all the walls is just books. And that is a very Karl moment with a study desk in the middle. So you're surrounded by literature.
So amazing to have that vision from early on. In your opinion, how important is the role of thoughtful architectural design in creating authentic living experiences and building, I guess, long-term loyalty when choosing a real estate property?
It is very important, and I think for people, it's the whole experience. Like we as architects talk about planning, how the building works functionally. We talk about materiality, we talk about space, the volumes, the interconnection. But what is really important is that all this stuff comes together to create experience. So I think in any of the projects that we have designed, we're very passionate about how people will approach the building, they enter it, they live in the different spaces, and how those spaces are connected to nature. A building is a filter to nature. So, in all our designs, it's about how we can expand just that house to a bigger experience. And for us, nature and that interconnection with nature is really important.
Can you speak more on the connection to nature, in terms of the KL Villas?
So in the KL Villas, obviously we were inspired by the maison. So the front of the villa is very stone, and it's very straight and symmetrical and pure. And then as you transfer through the catwalk of the front door, through the central space, and the whole villa opens up to glass and frames nature with the pool and the parks and the landscape outside. So there's this beautiful tradition from solid, pure maison Paris through to this beautiful, what we would call a mirage to the Middle East and the lifestyle of nature here.
So we often hear design tells a story, and we wonder, what story were you trying to tell with the Karl Lagerfeld Villas, and how does that tie back to Karl's legacy and also to Taraf's vision?
Yeah, so obviously when we worked with the team in Paris, we developed the story of Karl's home and the maison and how we could bring that to UAE and embrace that with the cultural and the Middle East experience. So I think, that was the big idea that drove the design. And then we infused that with a catwalk inspiration, and then creating these very unique spaces inside the house. Like another one of the very unique spaces is a walk-in wardrobe, so the master bedroom and what we created there in terms of how you can display your fashion was inside your house and how clothes are celebrated as a part of the interior design is very special. So again, each one of these elements makes the Lagerfeld houses so special and unique and really embrace the DNA of Karl Lagerfeld.
How did we get to the end of this interview and not discuss the walk-in wardrobe in more detail?
I had to drop it in at the end.
Can you please give us a tiny little snippet of information as to the vision behind the walk-in closets in the Karl Lagerfeld Villas?
Well, obviously in the master bedroom, you transition through these very beautiful double doors, which then, again, very much like a Paris maison. And then you transfer into this walk-in wardrobe, and it's got an island of display areas, and then very much open. You see the clothes, and then you transition again through into a master bathroom, which is very solid in stone, but pure in its composition, with natural light flooding in from the right-hand side. So it's actually a very special sequence of spaces that we've created, and you have to come and see it when it gets built, and you can really enjoy the beauty.
Thank you, Michael, for offering such a thoughtful perspective on the role of design in real estate, especially in the evolving world of branded residences. It's clear that when design is done right, it's much more than impress. It transforms how people live, interact, and connect with their surroundings. The Karl Lagerfeld Villas by Taraf are a testament to how luxury, functionality, and identity can seamlessly blend into iconic spaces that shape lives and communities. Thank you for tuning in, and make sure to join us next time for more insightful conversations on real estate, lifestyle, and everything in between. See you in the next episode of Lovin Real Estate.